Hey everybody, this is Natasha Kirtchuk from ILTV. I'm here to give an update about the new restrictions that have just been released by the Israeli Health Ministry and the Israeli Prime Minister. I'm going to give everybody a couple of minutes to start joining our live cast here, okay? So I'm live from Tel Aviv, and as many of you know, the Israeli Prime Minister has just announced a new set of restrictions for the state of Israel amid the ongoing coronavirus pandemic. And I'm going to break everything down for you guys in English right now because I know obviously all of this news has been coming out in Hebrew. We have a lot of immigrants, English speakers who would like to hear this news in English. Okay, guys. All right, so to begin, as many of you know, for the last couple of hours, we've been hearing a lot of rumors about a 5-week partial shutdown of the economy. And basically what the Israeli Prime Minister has just announced is that it is now advised that all Israelis keep a distance of 2 meters, that's 6.5 feet from one another. Of course, this is not a regulation that is going to be enforced in any way, but they're saying that that is a new health ministry recommendation that all Israelis stay at least 2 meters or 6.5 feet away from one another, because that's about spitting distance, they say, and that is how this virus is passed on, okay? Now, with regards to food, and this is really important, we're seeing a lot of images of people going crazy, rushing supermarkets, stocking up on food and non-perishables. The Israeli Prime Minister and the Health Ministry are saying that is not necessary. There is no need to run to supermarkets and do this. Israel has enough food. We are getting food via airtime and maritime freights. Even ahead of Passover, we're going to have enough food. We're producing enough food locally for there to be no concerns about there being a lack of food. So don't storm the supermarkets. There are not going to be any shortages of food, okay? Again, I'm going to repeat that one more time. The Israeli Prime Minister is saying, with regards to food, there's no reason to stress. There's no reason to storm supermarkets. Israel has enough food to last through Passover and beyond. So the supermarkets are going to continue to function, even though there are other businesses that are going to shut down in the coming weeks. And I'm about to let you guys know what those businesses are. Supermarkets and pharmacies are going to remain open. So there's also going to be no shortage of medicine because Israel has stockpiles, and pharmacies will be working as normal. They're not going to be closing. Banking services are also going to continue as normal. ATMs will continue functioning, so you don't have to worry about that either. You'll be able to go to the banks and you'll be able to take out money from ATMs. They're going to be functioning as per usual. Also, petrol stations where you get your gas, they're going to continue to work as well. So there's no worries in regards to getting gas for your cars. Petrol stations will continue working. Now, what is going to be closing? I'm sure that is the big question here. Now, the Israeli Prime Minister said this. Unfortunately, everything that has to do with leisure is going to stop right now. So we're talking about restaurants, theaters, cinemas, bars, cafes, all of these non-necessary places are basically going to have to close for now, okay? I'm getting an update at this very moment saying the Israeli Prime Minister is calling again for a unity government with the Blue and White Party. We're going to get to the political side of this in a second. Sorry, but that's just an update. Okay, so who is going to have to close? Restaurants, theaters, bars, cafes, kind of place of leisure. Gyms are also going to have to close now. And in terms of, factories, any type of production, that will continue, but with limitations. They did not make any announcement about public transportation so far. What we do know is that they want to limit the amount of people that are coming onto buses, and in intercity rides, people are not allowed to stand. Everybody has to be sitting. Again, this may change because they're now advising everybody to have a 2-meter distance between one another. So we're going to have to wait and see what comes out about public transport. But also, Israelis are not allowed to sit in the front rows of buses near drivers. And guys, if you have questions, please write them in. I'm going to try to go through and answer more. So I'm just kind of going to repeat what I was saying before for those of you who have just joined. Right now, all Israelis are being advised to keep a distance of 2 meters or 6.5 feet from one another. Please try sticking to that as much as you can. That's what the Israeli Prime Minister says, because we don't know where the virus is and it can pass through spit or sneezing or coughing. And if you're 2 meters away from other people and they happen to cough near you, then you won't get hit by that, basically, okay? So this isn't obviously a ban on being closer to people, but they're saying keep a distance of 2 meters from anybody around you. Supermarkets are staying open, guys. There's no reason to freak out and, go to your local supermarket and overbuy. There's enough food. Through Passover, we're still getting food into Israel via airtime and maritime freights. There's no food shortage in Israel, and that's not going to be the case. In terms of medicine, pharmacies will also be staying open. Israel has stockpiles. Pharmacies are working as normal, so you don't have to worry about there being a lack of medicine. Banking services are going to continue. ATMs will continue working. That's open. Gas stations are going to continue working. Everything that has to do with leisure is what is going to close. Restaurants, theaters, bars, cafes, those are going to be closing as of tomorrow morning. It is not, sorry, I'm going to answer the question. Post offices, I cannot answer about the post offices. Banks are staying open, just to answer the questions that are there. I didn't see anything about post offices. And medicine in regard to the virus, I can't give you guys any answers about that right now, but pharmacies are going to continue to work. All right, continuing. Let's see. Gyms are also going to be closing. They're advising that there are no gatherings of more than 10 people in any given space. So, as you might remember last week, there was an announcement that, events with 100 people or more are now banned. Well, now they're saying there should be gatherings of no more than 10 people in a single space. And that also has to do with workplaces. So they're advising people who are in workspaces where they can work from home to please do that, so that they can limit the amount of people in the same working space. Okay, I'm going to start from the beginning again and repeat everything that I just said before for those of you who have just joined us. The Israeli Prime Minister and the Israeli Health Minister is advising that all Israelis keep a distance of 2 meters, that's 6.5 feet from one another. They're saying that with regards to food, there's no reason to freak out and run to supermarkets. There's still going to be food. We have no shortage of food in Israel. We're still going to be getting food via airtime and maritime freights. Even ahead of Passover, there is enough food that is being locally produced here in Israel as well to sustain the population. There's also not going to be any shortage of medicine. Pharmacies are staying open. Banking services are staying open. Gas stations are staying open. The only places that will be closing as of tomorrow morning will be restaurants, theaters, bars, cafes, basically any place of leisure. Gyms as well will be closing. Public transportation. I see 1 million people are asking me about this. As of now, there has not been a clear announcement as to whether or not they're going to be closing public transportation. Let me see if there's any kind of update. 1 second, guys. Okay, for now, the public transportation is going to remain open, but they will be giving an update tomorrow morning to let people know if there are any changes. But what will remain the same as was announced a couple of days ago is that the front row of buses, the front row of seats, are to remain empty to make sure that any passengers are not too close to the drivers and to keep them safe. And also standing on buses is also banned as of now, especially between intercity rides, so rides from Jerusalem to Tel Aviv as an example. Are hospital workers allowed to work? Basically, all essential services are staying open right now. So hospitals, dentists, anything that is essential is going to remain open. All right, guys, I'm going to start answering some of your questions. Let's see. What about people who have Israel Postal Services? Okay, the post office, there hasn't been an announcement about that yet, but I believe that it's continuing to function as before. Somebody asked, let's see, about banks are going to continue to function. ATMs are going to continue to function. In terms of government centers, how many people are going to be working there? Reports are saying that an estimated 70% of government offices are going to work from home. The private sector will stay open. Every CO is going to have to choose what they want to do with their own company. That's what the latest news is. Pet stores. That is a good question. I have not heard anything about pet stores, but I'm assuming the pet stores will be allowed to stay open because, you know, they provide food, right? Just like supermarkets do. Kupat Cholim and Doal. Okay, so the Kupat Cholim is the healthcare offices, healthcare centers, doctors, everything that is essential service, so medical care, pharmacies are going to stay open, guys. You don't have to worry about that. Also, supermarkets are staying open, so you don't have to rush to the supermarkets. There's enough food for everybody, so we can all calm down. Can we still get chocolate? Somebody asks. I think that you still can get chocolate. No need to be worried about that. Is the mail service still open? It's interesting that everybody keeps on asking this. Yes, the mail service is open as far as I'm concerned. Public transportation, there's going to be an announcement made tomorrow about how public transportation is going to be affected. But as of now, all the public transportation is going to be working until tomorrow. I heard that there's a shortage of chocolate. Is that true? I cannot answer whether or not there is a shortage of chocolate. That's not something that I have the answer to right now. Okay, so several people have asked about malls. Right now, everything that has to do with leisure is going to be closed. So restaurants, theaters, bars, cinemas, cafes, that is all going to be closed starting as of tomorrow morning. And malls, I'm not sure what the regulation with malls are, but I'm assuming that everything that has to do with leisure would also include retail. The idea is to minimize the amount of people in the same public spaces to slow the spread of the disease so that as more cases are diagnosed, which unfortunately that is obviously what is expected to happen, healthcare centers, hospitals are not going to be overwhelmed with too many people. Okay, let's see. There's so many questions right now, guys. I'm trying to answer them all. Okay, guys, malls will be closed. That is the news coming out right now. So, to reiterate what I said beforehand, for all of the people who have just joined, what is going to stay open? Supermarkets are staying open. Pharmacies are staying open. Banking services are going to continue as normal. ATMs will stay open. Petrol stations will stay open. Gas stations, in other words, will stay open. Everything that has to do with leisure is going to close. We're talking malls, restaurants, theaters, cinemas, bars. Those are all going to close, and this is all supposed to take place over the course of the next 5 weeks. Let's see, what about public transportation? Public transportation, all the announcements about public transportation and whether or not it's going to continue to fully function will be made tomorrow morning. As of now, they seem to be functioning. Okay, guys, how about the airport? That question has also come up several times. Well, as you all know, obviously anybody who is coming into Israel from abroad has to enter 2 weeks of quarantine. The airports are not closed, but there are severe regulations when it comes to travel. Please let us know how long this will be taking place. This is estimated to take place over the course of the next 5 weeks. How about schools? All schools are closed until after Passover at least, and also universities will be closed. There hasn't been an announcement yet about kindergartens, but it is expected that kindergartens will also be closed. Let's see, guys. I'm trying to answer all of your questions. The post office. I don't have any news for you guys about the post office, but I believe that it is going to continue to function because there has not been any news about it closing. What is the space that we need to keep from one another? So the Israeli Prime Minister has recommended a distance of 2 meters at 6.5 feet between each individual person. That's what the health ministry is saying. They want the public to try to to try to stick to staying at least 2 meters away from one another as much as possible, because that's basically spitting distance. That's literally the terminology that they used. If you sneeze or cough, it can go a distance of up to 2 meters. So they want you to stay that far away from other people so that you don't get coughed or sneezed on. What about the gym? All gyms are being closed, guys. Sorry. Tourists are still banned in Israel. In other words, all foreigners are not allowed to come into the state of Israel at this point. Will government offices remain open? As far as we're concerned right now, they will stay open, but an estimated 70% of those working in these offices will begin to work from home. So there may be new regulations in terms of hours and when government offices are functioning. What about restaurant deliveries? Restaurants are supposed to close as of tomorrow morning for the next 5 weeks. So I'm assuming that deliveries are included. Is it true that nobody can go outside of their house? That is not true. You are allowed to go out of your house if you're not in quarantine. But what they are saying is that if you have any fever or respiratory symptoms, you should stay at home. You need to be in complete isolation, and you're not allowed to go out into public. So if you have a fever or any type of respiratory symptoms, it's necessary for you to go into quarantine, and you need to be isolated, not only from other people, but also your own family members. Okay. Michael asks if he can order me a pizza to say thank you for my hard work. I think I'm good, but I appreciate it, guys. All right. Vets. Are veterinary offices going to stay open? I cannot answer that, but I would assume that all type of... Basically, guys, if it's an essential service, it's going to remain open. That is what the Israeli Prime Minister said. So we're talking pharmacies and supermarkets. They're staying open, and that also goes for hospitals, dental offices, and so I'm assuming that vets will also stay open as well. Okay. I'm going to try to answer some more questions here. Okay, again, about transportation. Public transportation is continuing to work. But tomorrow morning there's going to be an announcement about any changes and new regulations that are made to public transportation. All right, guys, what I'm going to do right now is kind of do a recap of everything that was said before. As you all know, the Israeli Prime Minister and various members of the health ministry spoke at around 9:30. And they basically announced a series of new regulations related to the coronavirus outbreak. And so the first rule that was basically announced is to keep a distance of 2 meters, that's 6.5 feet, from every other person that you're with, because they believe in doing so will be able to slow down the spread of the disease. With regards to food, there's no reason to stress about it and to rush to supermarkets and start buying up products like crazy. There's enough food in Israel, the Prime Minister is saying. There are no shortages. We still have food that is coming into Israel via airtime and maritime freights. Even ahead of Passover, we're going to have enough food, so don't storm the supermarkets. We're fine. Pharmacies are going to remain open. There will be no shortage of medicine. We have stockpiles. Banking services are going to continue. ATMs are going to continue working. Gas stations are going to continue working. Now, in terms of what is going to close, everything that has to do with leisure, so malls, restaurants, theaters, bars, and cafes are all going to close. And that's supposed to start as of tomorrow morning. Now, in terms of gatherings of more than 10 people in a single space are now banned. Before that was obviously 100 people, and now they've just announced that they don't want gatherings of more than 10 people to take place in a single space. And if you have to sneeze and cough, you should do that into your elbow. But guys, that's just common sense, so that's not really a new regulation. And basically with quarantine, they're trying to, use technology to be able to monitor those who are in quarantine to make sure that people are following the rules and doing what they need to do. Okay, guys, give me a quick second because I'm going to just look up and see if there are any more updates that I can give you. Hold on. Give me a second. All right, so just to reiterate what I said before, there are new restrictions. There are bans on gatherings of 10 people or more. 10 people or more in the same place are now banned. The government, that is what I have forgotten to mention because I've been so focused on everything related to the new restrictions surrounding coronavirus. The Israeli Prime Minister has just called again on his political rivals to join him in a national emergency government. The government is working to minimize the economic damage from these new restrictions. So Netanyahu is repeating his call for a national emergency government and is calling on his political rivals, blue and white Benny Gantz, to immediately hold coalition negotiations and come together to form a government to deal, obviously, with what is happening right now. Okay. Yes, all gatherings of 10 people or more are now banned. That's the new rule. Yep. And when people are asking about minyans and churches and holy places, there are all bans around that. So the Western Wall as well is not going to be open to gatherings. Yoel Kaufman, my wife thinks that the world is coming to an end. Can you shout out to her and tell her that it's fine? Danielle, it's fine. The world's not coming to an end. The Israeli Prime Minister just said, don't storm the supermarkets. Don't storm the pharmacies. There's going to be enough food and enough medicine. So don't freak out, guys. The buses are still running tomorrow morning. There are going to be new restrictions made about public transportation, but they have not yet been released. And these new restrictions are supposed to take place over the course of the next 5 weeks. That includes the closing of cafes. Okay, guys, give me a second. I'm going to see if there is anything else that I can update you with. Okay, essential services are going to continue and leisure activities are going to stop. That is basically the main message here. Essential services like supermarkets, pharmacies, hospitals, dental offices are going to continue functioning. Banking services are continue functioning. Gas stations are going to continue functioning, but leisure activities are going to be halted. So that's malls, restaurants, cafes, and bars. They didn't say anything about the post office. A lot of people are asking about that, but I believe the post office is going to continue working. Gyms are now going to be closed. Outdoor gyms, I can't give you an answer there, but obviously you're not supposed to be in a space where there's a gathering of 10 people or more, so I'm assuming that if you were to go to an outdoor gym on the beach or something, then you'd want to make sure that there are not more than 10 people there. Okay. All right, guys, I think that I basically repeated the same thing over and over and over again, and so I'm going to kind of do a recap of everything that I said, and then I'm going to get off, and for any other questions that you have, feel free to post them here and we will try to answer them at a later point. Obviously, we are going to have our main news show tomorrow at 9 p.m. where we're going to be giving you an update, and also tomorrow morning for our morning news brief. But let me give you the rundown of everything that was said before so that it's clear and there's no confusion. Basically, the Israeli Prime Minister and the Health Ministry have just made several new restrictions, okay? They've announced several new restrictions. The first one is to keep a distance of 2 meters from every other person that you see in public. That's 6.5 feet or 2 meters. They're advising all people to stay 2 meters away from one another. Vital services are going to continue functioning. So supermarkets are going to be staying open. There's no reason to stress about food. We're going to be still getting food via airtime and maritime freights. Even ahead of Passover, we will have enough food. There's no reason to storm the supermarkets. There will be no shortages, okay? So the supermarkets will continue to function. There will be no shortage of medicine either. We have stockpiles, and pharmacies are going to continue working as normal. And banking services will also continue. ATMs will continue to work. Gas stations will continue to work. The only places that are closing are the places that have to do with our, unfortunately. So restaurants, theaters, malls, bars, cafes, and gyms are all going to be closing starting tomorrow morning. And this is supposed to be for the course of the next 5 weeks. And then the post office, everybody's been asking about that. I believe the post offices are staying open, but again, there has been no announcement about the post offices specifically. What is important to keep in mind, guys, is that tomorrow morning there are going to be new regulations and announcements that are made about the public transportation system. So for now, buses and trains are still running, but there are going to be new regulations as to what kind of rules exist when using public transportation. But what you can know for now is that if you are going on 10 bus, you're not allowed to sit in the front row of the bus as to keep away from the bus driver, and standing is not allowed on buses that are going between cities like Jerusalem and Tel Aviv. So intercity bus rides, standing is banned. Okay, no gatherings of more than 10 people in a single space. That is also new regulation. All gatherings of more than 10 people are now banned. The idea is, of course, to keep a distance and to make sure that there are less people in public spaces. Again, the Israeli government says that what they want to do here is slow down the spread of the coronavirus. The idea is to slow it down as much as possible so that we don't end up overwhelming our healthcare system. Because if you look at what's happening in Italy, for example, we've seen this uptick in deaths, which are largely a result of the fact that the more patients that come out, the less access they have to healthcare services because hospitals are overwhelmed. And here in Israel, we want to make sure that the disease spreads as slowly as possible so we don't end up having an issue with providing health services to those who do get ill. Okay, guys, that's it. I'm going to end this live right now, but don't worry, you can rewatch it and you'll hear everything that I said a million times. I basically just repeated myself for the last half hour or however long this live has been, and I'm losing my voice now. But bottom line, stay safe, sneeze and cough into your elbow, stay 2 meters away from other people, don't worry about food, supermarkets are staying open, pharmacies are staying open, banks are staying open, gas stations are staying open. The only thing is that you're not going to be able to grab a beer with your friends in a local bar or eat out at a restaurant or go to the mall or the movie theater because those are going to be closed for the next 5 weeks starting tomorrow. But guys, everything's okay. Life goes on. If you're in quarantine, I hope that you're staying emotionally stable and take care of one another. That's basically it. Stay safe. Wash your hands, and God bless you all. All right, thank you for watching. We will see you on ILTV tomorrow at 9 p.m. Bye, guys.